I never thought something as simple as a video game could spark such a complicated storm of emotions in my relationship. To be clear, I've never considered myself a gamer. Sure, I dabbled in games here and there, small cozy games on my phone, a few light console adventures with friends, maybe Mario Kart parties, but nothing that anyone would call serious gaming. My fiancé, on the other hand, practically grew up with a controller in his hand. He wore his years of experience like a badge of honor. To him, gaming wasn't just a hobby, it was a way to prove skill, patience, and superiority. And I respected that, even admired it. But admiration quickly turns into tension when that skill gap becomes the basis for teasing. The first time I picked up Elden Ring, I didn't expect much. Honestly, I thought I'd last maybe an hour before frustration forced me to quit. Everyone online talked about how brutally difficult it was, how unforgiving the bosses could be. My fiancé himself had struggled with it. He'd gotten stuck on one boss for weeks and finally abandoned the game out of pure frustration. That should have been my red flag. Instead, curiosity pulled me in. I started watching videos online, not just gameplay, but deep explanations. How builds worked, how the mechanics all tied together, how a strategy could completely change the experience. Something clicked in my brain. Suddenly, this towering game that looked impossible didn't seem so terrifying anymore. So I decided to try. When I told him, his reaction wasn't exactly supportive. Seriously? You want to play Elden Ring? You know it's like insanely hard, right? He said, his tone dripping with skepticism. I shrugged, trying to sound casual even though my stomach twisted with nerves. Yeah, I know. But I watched some videos, and I think I want to give it a shot. He smirked. All right, just don't cry when you can't even beat the tutorial boss. The comment stung, but I brushed it off. The first time I booted up the game, my hand shook. I stared at the character creation screen for far too long, overwhelmed by choices. Eventually, I picked a class that looked interesting. One focused on intelligence and dexterity, relying on spells and swift attacks instead of brute strength. When I told him, he laughed. Magic? Really? That's basically cheating. You're supposed to suffer through the game, not blast enemies from a distance. I tried to explain that it wasn't about avoiding suffering. It was about making the game approachable for me. But every time I opened my mouth, he cut me off with another jab. Rune farming too? Wow. You're just speedrunning the easy mode of the game. It became a daily pattern. I'd sit down, controller in hand, trying my best to immerse myself in the world, while he hovered nearby with sarcastic comments. Don't forget to hide behind your little spells. Bet you couldn't handle this boss without magic. You know, real players don't play like that. I laughed it off at first, but deep down it hurt. Still, I kept going. I refused to let his words ruin what was becoming a personal challenge for me. Little by little, I started progressing. Each boss I defeated sent a surge of adrenaline through me, a rush of pride I hadn't felt in years. For once, I was doing something difficult all on my own and succeeding. By the time I reached the endgame, my fiancé's comments hadn't stopped, but my resilience had grown stronger. I beat the final boss with sweaty hands, my heart racing, and when the credits rolled, I almost cried. I had done it. Me, the girl who was bad at video games. I had conquered Elden Ring. When I told him, his reaction wasn't celebration. It wasn't pride. Instead, he narrowed his eyes and smirked. 48 hours? That's your total playtime. I nodded, still buzzing from my achievement. He crossed his arms. Bet I could beat it faster. That was it. No congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. Just a challenge. I tried to hide my disappointment. Cool. Then let's do co-op. We could start fresh together and... No, he interrupted immediately. That ruins it. I want my own achievement. His words hit me harder than I expected. I thought playing together would be fun, a bonding experience, a way to share the joy I had discovered. But he shot down the idea without hesitation. I swallowed my frustration and let him have his moment. If he wanted to prove himself, fine. But then things took a strange turn. He started researching obsessively, glued to his phone late at night, scrolling through guides and videos. When I asked what he was looking at, he shut his screen and muttered, "Nothing." I didn't push, but I noticed. Then one morning I woke up alone. The bed was cold beside me. I glanced at the clock. It was 5:30 a.m. Confused. I slipped out of bed and padded down the hall. There he was, sitting on the couch with the controller in his hands, eyes glued to the screen. I stayed silent for a moment, watching him play. At first, I didn't notice, but then I looked closer. The sword, the armor, the spells, they were mine. He was using the exact same build he had mocked me for. The same weapon he had told me was awful. The same magic he had called cheating. I froze, my chest tightening with disbelief. All those comments, all the ridicule, all the belittling, it was suddenly clear what they really meant. He hadn't just been teasing me. He had been trying to undermine me. I couldn't hold it in. "Are you serious right now?" I blurted. He jumped, nearly dropping the controller. "What the hell? You scared me." I pointed at the screen. "You're using my build, the exact one you made fun of me for." He blinked, his face quickly twisting into defense. "No, I'm not. I mean, maybe a little similar, but it's the same sword, the same armor, the same spells. You told me this was cheating." He shifted uncomfortably. "I was just being sarcastic, okay? You take things too seriously." My jaw clenched. "You mocked me for weeks. You made me feel like my achievement didn't matter. And now you're copying me?" He rolled his eyes. "Oh my God, you're overreacting. I just wanted to try it out." But deep down, I knew the truth. He couldn't stand that I had done something before him, that I had beaten the game when he had given up, that my cheating build had carried me through where his real strategy had failed. And instead of celebrating with me, instead of being proud, he tried to make me feel small. The anger boiled inside me, but beneath it was something heavier. Sadness. Because this wasn't just about a game anymore.
It was about respect.
I didn't say anything else right away. I just stood there, staring at him, feeling this mix of disbelief and disappointment twisting inside my chest. He shifted in his seat like he knew I was watching him too closely. Finally, he muttered, "Look, it's not a big deal. You're seriously blowing this out of proportion." I crossed my arms. "Not a big deal? You've been mocking me for weeks. You made me feel like I was cheating the whole time I played. And now you're sitting here using the exact same setup you swore was pathetic." He sighed and leaned back, setting the controller down on his lap. "You don't get it. I was just messing around. You know me. I joke about everything." I shook my head. "No, this wasn't joking. Joking is playful. What you did was belittling." His jaw tightened. "Come on, don't make this into some huge relationship issue. It's just a game." But that's the thing. It wasn't just a game. I wanted to tell him that, but the words felt too heavy in my throat. Instead, I whispered, "Do you realize how small you made me feel? Every time you laughed, every time you said, I wasn't playing the real way, I felt like my win didn't matter, like I didn't matter." For the first time that morning, his expression faltered. He looked at me, then away, then back again. "I didn't mean it like that." I raised an eyebrow. "Then how did you mean it?" Silence stretched between us, broken only by the faint music of the game still running on the TV. He rubbed his hands together, searching for words. I don't know. Maybe I felt jealous." I blinked. The word hit me like a slap. "Jealous? Of me?" He gave a humorless laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I've been gaming my whole life. I pride myself on being good at stuff like this. And then you, someone who barely plays games, pick up Elden Ring and beat it in less than 2 weeks. You beat what I couldn't. Do you know what that does to my ego? For a moment, I just stared at him. Because finally, the truth was on the table. He wasn't mocking me because he thought my achievement was meaningless. He was mocking me because it meant too much, because it threatened him. I let out a shaky breath. "So, instead of being proud of me, you tried to tear me down?" His eyes darted away. "I didn't mean to. I just didn't handle it right." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him how unfair it was that my happiness had to shrink so his ego could stay intact. But instead, I sat down on the edge of the couch and buried my face in my hands. "Do you know how excited I was to beat that game?" I whispered. "Do you know how big of a deal it was for me? I don't usually finish hard things like that." But I stuck with it, and I felt proud for the first time in a long time. And instead of celebrating with me, you made me feel like a fraud. The weight of my words hung in the air. He finally spoke, his voice softer than before.
I'm sorry.
But apologies are just words when they aren't backed by change. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that he truly meant it. But deep down, part of me wondered if the cycle would just repeat. The mocking, the minimizing, the need to compete instead of support. I thought back to the nights when I'd begged him to play co-op with me. I'd imagined us side by side, laughing through challenges, celebrating wins together. But he refused because my achievement had to stay separate from his. And now I understood why. He couldn't handle sharing the spotlight. The realization made my chest ache. I lifted my head and looked at him. I wanted this to bring us closer. Instead, it feels like it pushed us apart.
His face fell. Babe, no.
That's not what I wanted. Then what did you want? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you wanted me to fail. His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't have an answer. And maybe that was the answer. The rest of the day carried a tension I couldn't shake. He tried to lighten the mood with casual conversation, but every word felt forced, every laugh hollow. Meanwhile, my mind kept circling back to the same thought. If he couldn't celebrate something as small as a video game victory with me, how would he handle bigger victories? Bigger moments in life? Was this what marriage would look like? Me shrinking so he could feel tall? The thought scared me. That evening, I walked into the living room and found him playing again. I watched quietly from the doorway as he navigated through areas I remembered struggling with. He was good. Of course he was good, but every time he cast one of the spells I had used, my stomach twisted. It wasn't about the game anymore.
It was about the symbolism.
He was proving to himself that he could do what I had done, but better, faster, cleaner. And by doing that, he was indirectly proving that my achievement had less value. At least, that's what it felt like. I cleared my throat. Are you trying to beat my time? He didn't look away from the screen. Maybe.
Why?
Because it's fun. Or because you can't stand that I did it first. He froze for just a second, barely noticeable, but enough for me to catch it. Then he forced a laugh. You're reading too much into this. But I wasn't. I knew it. Later that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling while he scrolled through his phone beside me. The silence between us felt heavier than any argument. Finally, I whispered, "Do you respect me?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. His phone screen dimmed as he set it down. "Of course I do. Why would you even ask that?" I turned on my side to face him. Because sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes it feels like you'd rather compete with me than support me. Like you need to remind me you're better. His brow furrowed. That's not true.
Then prove it, I said. How?
Next time I achieve something, even if it's small, even if it doesn't matter to you, be proud of me. Don't make jokes. Don't make me feel like less. Just be proud. He looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. Okay, I can do that. But part of me still wondered, could he really? The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. I wanted to shake it off, to tell myself it was just about a game, nothing more. But deep down, I knew better. When someone shows you how they react to your success, you learn more than you ever wanted to know. And what I had learned scared me. He was already up again, controller in hand, eyes glued to the screen. I stood in the doorway and watched him for a moment. His character moved with confidence, weaving through enemies, casting the same spells I had mastered. He looked proud of himself. Too proud. Finally, I asked, "Are you planning to keep playing like that?" He jumped slightly, glancing over his shoulder. Like what? Like me, using my build, copying everything I did. He smirked. It works, doesn't it? That's not the point, I said sharply. He tilted his head. Then, what's the point? The point is, you told me it was worthless. You mocked me for it. And now you're acting like you invented it.
He scoffed.
You're being dramatic again. I never said it was worthless. Yes, you did. I snapped. Every single day, you made me feel like what I was doing didn't matter. And now that you're doing the exact same thing, suddenly it's fine? His smirk faded. He set the controller down with a sigh. I said I was sorry. What else do you want from me? I folded my arms. I want honesty. Why does it matter so much to you to beat me at this?
His jaw tightened.
Because I'm supposed to be better. The words slipped out of him before he could stop them. My breath caught. Supposed to be better? I repeated. Because you're a man? Because you've been gaming longer? What exactly does that mean? He rubbed his face with both hands, groaning. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. I whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't about the game anymore. It was about power. It was about how he saw me. Not as an equal partner, but as someone who should always stay one step below him. That day, I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time he laughed at his own progress, every time he muttered about shaving time off his run, it felt like another crack in the foundation of what I thought we had. I replayed our conversations in my head like broken records. Real players don't play like that. You're supposed to suffer. I bet I could beat it faster. Each phrase was another reminder that my joy had never really mattered to him. It was always filtered through his need to feel superior. That night, I sat on the balcony alone, staring out at the quiet street below. When he finally joined me, the tension was thick. He leaned against the railing, avoiding my eyes. You've been quiet all day. Maybe because I don't know what to say anymore, I admitted. He frowned. You're really going to let a video game come between us? I turned my head sharply toward him. It's not about the game. It's about how you treated me. He shifted uncomfortably. I told you I was joking.
No.
You were competing, and you couldn't stand that I won. His mouth opened, then closed again. He didn't deny it this time. I let the words spill out, raw and unfiltered. Do you know how much I wanted to share that experience with you? I imagined us laughing through the hard fights, helping each other, being proud together. But instead, you refused because you needed your own glory. And when I finished first, you didn't cheer. You tore me down. Do you realize how that feels? He stayed quiet, his eyes on the ground. Finally, he said, I guess I didn't think about it like that. That's the problem, I said softly. You didn't think about me at all. For a while, we sat in silence, the cool night air wrapping around us. Then, in a low voice, he asked, So, what happens now? I swallowed hard. That depends on you. He looked at me finally, his eyes filled with something between fear and frustration. What do you mean? I mean, do you want to be with me because you love me, or because I make you feel superior? Because right now, I can't tell. His face paled. I hadn't meant for the words to sound like an ultimatum, but maybe they needed to be. That night, we barely spoke. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling again, wondering if this was the beginning of the end. I loved him, I truly did. But love without respect is fragile. And I couldn't shake the question echoing in my mind. If he couldn't celebrate my smallest victories, how could he stand beside me for life's biggest ones? The next few days felt like walking on glass. Every interaction between us carried a weight I couldn't ignore. He tried to act normal, cracking jokes, playing his games, talking about mundane things, but underneath, the fracture was still there. And I couldn't stop replaying that one sentence in my mind. I'm supposed to be better. Those words echoed louder than anything else. One evening, after dinner, I decided I couldn't keep holding it in. We sat at the table, empty plates pushed aside, the quiet hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. I looked at him, steadying my breath. We need to talk. His fork clinked against his plate as he set it down.
About what?
About us. He raised an eyebrow. Us? You're still upset about the game? I shook my head slowly. It's not the game. It's what the game showed me. His smile faded. I leaned forward, folding my hands together. Do you know how hard it is to feel proud of yourself when the person you love most keeps cutting you down? He rubbed the back of his neck, already defensive. I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't erase the way it made me feel. Sorry doesn't change the fact that instead of lifting me up, you wanted to push me down. His voice grew sharper. I wasn't trying to push you down. I just didn't expect you to beat it. It caught me off guard. So, your first instinct was to make me feel small? I asked quietly. He froze. The silence was louder than any confession. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the dark street. Do you know why I started playing that game? I asked, my voice softer now. He looked confused. Because you were curious? I shook my head. Because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something hard. That I wasn't just the girl who gave up when things got tough. I needed that win, not just in the game, but in life. I turned to face him, my eyes burning. And instead of celebrating with me, you turned it into a competition. Do you have any idea how lonely that feels? His shoulders slumped. For a long time, he didn't answer. Then he whispered, I guess I didn't realize how much it meant to you. I shook my head. No, you didn't realize how much I meant to you. Because if you had, you wouldn't have treated me that way. The words hung in the air like broken glass. I hadn't planned to say them, but once they were out, I knew they were true. He stood slowly, moving closer, but I held up my hand to stop him. I need you to understand something, I said firmly. Marriage isn't about one person always being better. It's about standing side by side, even when one of us shines brighter for a moment. If you can't do that, if you can't celebrate my wins without trying to overshadow them, then what are we even building together? His face went pale. You're saying you don't want to marry me? My chest tightened. I'm saying I don't want to marry someone who needs me to be smaller just so he can feel big. The room went still. I could see the panic flicker in his eyes, but beneath it there was something else too, shame. He lowered his gaze. I didn't think I was doing that. But you were, I said gently. He swallowed hard. I don't want to lose you. Then stop treating me like competition. The words cracked something open between us. For the first time, he didn't argue. He didn't deflect with jokes or sarcasm. He just stood there, breathing heavily, like he was finally realizing what he'd done. It was the first real silence that felt like a beginning instead of an ending. Later that night, lying in bed, he reached for my hand. His grip was tentative, almost fragile. I'll do better, he whispered. I don't want you to feel alone in this. I looked at him in the dim light. I don't want promises. I want proof. He nodded slowly. Then I'll show you. But as I closed my eyes, I couldn't help but wonder. Could he really change? Or was this just another reset button, waiting to cycle back to the same game all over again? The following week felt different. Not perfect, not healed, but different. He seemed to carry my words with him everywhere he went, like they weighed on him in ways he hadn't expected. And maybe they did. For the first time in a long time, he didn't rush to play the game in the mornings. He didn't shove his victories in my face or smirk when he progressed. Instead, he did something I hadn't expected at all. One evening, while I was cooking dinner, he came into the kitchen holding the controller. Hey, he said quietly, do you want to play co-op tonight? I froze, knife halfway through chopping vegetables. What? He gave a small, nervous smile. You wanted that before, right? Us playing together. Maybe we could start a new run. Together this time. I stared at him, searching his face for the sarcasm, the edge of competitiveness. But it wasn't there. This time, he looked sincere. Later that night, we sat side by side, our characters on the screen facing down the first enemies of the game. At first, it felt awkward, but slowly, as we moved through the world, something shifted. We laughed when one of us rolled straight off a cliff. We cheered when we beat a tough boss together. For the first time, it didn't feel like me versus him. It felt like us. At one point, after a close fight where I almost died, but he saved me at the last second, I looked over at him. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't mocking. He was smiling, not at his own achievement, but at mine. And that moment meant more than any victory scream. Still, I knew better than to let one night erase everything. Change wasn't proven in a single act, it was proven in consistency. So I waited, and I watched. Over the next few weeks, small things began to shift. When I told him I'd finished a difficult project at work, he didn't roll his eyes or downplay it. He said, "I'm proud of you." When I cooked a new recipe, he didn't joke about me burning things. He said, "This is amazing." When I mentioned wanting to try something new, painting, writing, even something silly, he didn't dismiss it. He said, "Go for it. You'll be great." The words weren't huge, but they were different. They carried weight, because for the first time, they weren't laced with competition. One night, as we sat on the couch after another co-op session, I asked him, "Why the change?" He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Because I realized something." "What's that?" "That if I keep trying to be better than you, I'll end up without you." The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. He turned to me. "I don't want to lose you. I don't want to be the reason you feel small. I want to be the reason you feel bigger." My chest tightened. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was real. I leaned my head against his shoulder, whispering, "That's all I ever wanted." He kissed the top of my head. "Then that's what you'll get." And for the first time in weeks, I believed him. But here's the truth I learned through it all. Love isn't tested in the big, dramatic moments. It's tested in the small ones, the words we choose, the jokes we make, the way we react when someone else shines. Because in those tiny choices, we show whether we see our partner as competition or as family. And family should never be about who's better. It should always be about who's together. So no, this story wasn't just about a video game.
It was about respect.
It was about pride. It was about learning that the person who holds your heart should also hold your victories as if they were their own. And if they can't, then maybe they don't deserve to hold your heart at all. In the end, it wasn't about Elden Ring. It was about us. And for now, at least, I think we're learning to play on the same team.